Hi guys, welcome to IB Economics, and we're going to start unit 2.1, which is having a look at demand. And where we're heading with this unit is to eventually have a look at the whole price mechanism. You can see on the screen there, supply and demand, price on the vertical axis, quantity along the horizontal axis, and a price equilibrium. And the price mechanism is really the way that we explain the allocation of scarce resources in a market economy. But before we get to that diagram, we need to understand both the individual demand curve and the supply curve. So the person responsible for this, you've probably come across already, is Adam Smith. Adam Smith was a Scottish economist, wrote The Wealth of Nations back in 1776, and he really sort of laid out the way that the free market, the price mechanism, the forces of supply and demand, whatever you want to call it, to allocate our scarce resources in a market economy, how that's going to work. So he's responsible for this whole unit in IB Economics. This sentence here is the interaction of supply and demand within competitive markets will determine the equilibrium market price and ensure the resources are allocated in the most efficient way. That's a really important sentence. You should try and break it down. Make sure you understand, what's meant by supply and demand, competitive markets, equilibrium market price, and resources being allocated in the most efficient way. There's a lot being said in that sentence. So starting with demand then, we come across the law of demand, and those of you studying TOK will sort of think about, like the law of demand, is it a fundamental law of nature, or is it just something that economists have said will happen? But essentially, the law of demand states that if the price goes up, the demand will contract or decrease, and if the price goes down, then the demand will extend or will increase, and that's how the demand curve is drawn, downward sloping. We don't go into this in a great deal of detail. At higher level, students need to be familiar with a couple of reasons why the demand curve is downward sloping. One's called the law of diminishing marginal utility, which essentially means that we get extra satisfaction from each unit that we consume, so we're not going to pay a higher price for subsequent units. And then the alternative is to look at something called the income and substitution effects, which again, both of those effects will encourage us to buy more of the good as the price goes down. So this is the way that we show it, and you really should get used to using the arrows, showing the direction of change as indicated on this diagram. You can see there a contraction of demand as the price has gone up at the top, a movement down the demand curve there, less is being demanded now as a higher price, and then the extension of demand when the price falls. We expect people to buy more of the product as the price goes down. Now, we talk about markets, and a market is really just a collection of individuals, buyers and sellers. For it to be a competitive market, we want many buyers and many sellers. We don't specify exactly how many. But our market demand then is made up of a sum of all of the individual demand curves for a good or service. It's the sum of all the consumer's marginal benefit or utility. And so we also talk about effective demand in this marketplace. This diagram shows you the shifts in demand. So there will be occasions when the demand curve will actually shift to the right or shift to the left. A shift to the right there means that more is being demanded at each and every price. You can see that the price indicated by the dotted lines. Now more is being demanded at that price. Shift to the left means that less is being demanded at each and every price. So there must be reasons why the demand curve will shift to the right and shift to the left. And these are the reasons. We call them the non-price determinants of demand. There's 5 that you need to be familiar with. There's income, tastes and preferences, price of complements and substitutes, we call those related goods, future price expectations, and the number of customers. So we'll go through each of these in turn, and I'll show you diagrams which indicate what's going to happen when any of these non-price determinants of demand are going to change. But these are fundamental elements of our toolkit in economics. Now, one way of looking at income and the effect on demand is through the Engel curve. So we talk about normal goods. A normal good is any good where as your income goes up, you buy more of the product. An inferior good is where if your income goes up, you buy less of it. You can see that on the right-hand diagram there. Income along the bottom, so unusually, but demand up the side. You can see less being bought as your income rises in the right-hand diagram. And you can also have luxury goods in the middle where as your income gets to a certain point, you'll buy a lot more of this product. So what I'm going to do in the next few slides is to go through each of these questions, which is going to show you how the demand is going to be impacted. What I suggest you do is stop the video at this point. You can then have a go at these 7 and then you can come back to the video, restart it, and it will go through each of these in turn. You can just check your understanding, make sure that you've really appreciated what's going to happen in each of these cases. So this is the first one, relatively straightforward. Number of consumers in the market for product A increases. So as more consumers, the market demand is going to be bigger. Demand curve shifts to the right from D to D1. In a market, and you haven't quite got to this point yet, but having added the supply curve, the price is going to go up. So that's important. But with this question, you can just show an increase in the demand for D to D1. The arrows are also useful just to show the direction of change, make it clear to the examiner. Here's one where the consumer income increases, product A is inferior. So as your income goes up, you'll buy less of this product and the demand shifts from D to D1 as a consequence. Those in North America, things like Dollar Store, Dollarama, those are the stores that do well in a recession, incomes are low. They don't do so well when the economy is booming. People have got more money to spend, they tend to switch to sort of more luxury type goods. This is the one where you really don't want to get caught out. The price of good A increases, and remember we're looking at the market for good A. So the price of good A, for whatever reason, it's probably been a shift in supply somewhere, but for whatever reason the price of good A increases, we just get this movement along the original demand curve for good A. So here the increase is a contraction in demand. Less is going to be demanded now as the price goes up. The law of demand tells us that. Consumer income increases and product A is normal. So now you've got more money, people have got more money to spend. They'll go out and buy more of all normal goods. Now most goods are normal. Now, the inferior goods are less common. You can have degrees of normality. So a luxury good is likely to shift out to the right even more. But a normal good will always see that shift to the right of the demand curve, that more is going to be demanded. A news report claims that the use of product A has harmful effects on health. This one is going to show a shift to the left of the demand curve. People's tastes and preferences, people move away from this sort of product because of the harmful effects that have been reported. We've seen that recently with Donald Trump talking about Tylenol and the impact that is going to have on direct impact he says it has on autism. The price of substitute B good falls, so this is the same as the previous diagram. Sorry we didn't have the diagram on the previous slide, but it's the same as this one. Demand will shift to the left. So the price of substitute good is one that you can buy instead of this one. So the substitute has become cheaper, and so you're going to buy less of product A, the product that we're looking at, this market for product A. The demand is going to shift from D to D1 as a consequence. And the price of complementary good B increases. So complement is something that you buy as well as the product that you're talking about. If you buy product A, you will also buy product B. So product B becomes more expensive. You're going to buy less of good product B, and as a consequence, you're also going to buy less of product A. So it's exactly the same diagram as the previous one. Shift to the left of the demand curve for product A as a consequence of this change in the price of product B. Okay, so that takes us through unit 2.1 on demand.